Thank you again for joining us all today for our Budgeting for Financial Success webinar. I'm glad you were all able to join us. We'll hopefully keep this to an hour so you can get back to your Tuesdays. So thanks for being here today. A few things as we get started. This going. So we are in webinar mode. You might notice some of your controls look a little different. That's just because of how it is set up. But there is a Q&A feature where if you have questions throughout the event, please feel free to type your questions into that box and not in the actual chat area. And we will go over those questions towards the end. We are taking attendance because if you RSVP'd for the webinar and you actually attend it like you are now, you are entered to win a $50 gift card. So if the name that's showing up on your Zoom is different than what you registered for the attendance with, please rename yourself or feel free to send me a message later this week and I'll make sure to mark you on our attendance sheet. But we want to make sure everyone gets entered for that. And then later this week, we will send an email with whatever email you signed up with that has all of the follow-up materials and a survey in it. So you'll get a recording of this webinar. You don't need to write down all of the notes because you'll be able to refer back to it. It's going to be a link on YouTube. You'll have access to the slides. And then there are several worksheets that we're going to reference throughout the time. So you'll have access to those worksheets. You can print them out. You can download them to your computer and use them electronically if you would want. And then you will also have a survey to fill out to let us know how we did today. Let us know if you had any other questions. If you answer that survey, you are entered to win a $25 gift card as a thank you. So you've got a few chances to potentially win some money that helps your budget. So please think about that as we go along. So the materials that I'm going to reference today are from the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is a government agency. They are out there doing things to keep your best interests in mind. They work with financial institutions, they work with lenders and banks, and they provide a lot of financial education materials. So that's whose work we are referencing today. So if you have any additional questions or you're looking for extra financial help, there is a ton of stuff on the CFPB website, and you'll have a link for that you can go and look at. So as we get started today, this thought, do you control your money or does it control you? Thinking about budgets can be very stressful for some people. They think it's scary. It's a lot of numbers, and they feel that budgets are very controlling of their lives. And hopefully as we go through today, you'll see that budgets aren't meant to control you and your money shouldn't control you. Hopefully the budget will help you get control of that money so that you can live your life towards your goals and towards the things that you value in life. So we want to help you feel empowered to reach those goals that you have for your life. And as we go today, we're going to look at 4 different areas. These are all interconnected. So if you make a change in one area, it's likely going to impact what you can do in another area. And it's also okay if you feel less secure in one of the areas or you haven't achieved as much as you wanted to in one area. You don't have to hit your goals in all areas at once and be successful all at once, but we hopefully will set you up with some tips and tricks so you can start building success in each of these areas as you go. So our first one we're going to look at is setting goals. So setting goals can help us accomplish our dreams or help us reach something that's important to us. And as you're thinking about setting a goal, you want to balance what is valuable to you in your life. If you value supporting your family, then maybe a financial goal is starting a 529 savings account to help one of your kids or a grandkid be able to go to school later in life. Or maybe it is saving money to help you support your elderly parents because you value supporting your family. If you value having time to relax, your financial goals might be saving for a vacation or saving for going out with friends or a concert or something. And what one person's goals are going to be different from someone else. Your goals might be different than mine, your goals might be different from another attendee, and that is perfectly fine because your goals should be based on what you value and what is important to you in your life at this moment. As you're setting those goals, you'll want to think about what is the short-term and long-term impact or goals that you want to reach. So that a short-term thing might be saving for a vacation later this summer. And a long-term goal might be a wedding that's 3 years down the road, or saving for your retirement. It's good to think about goals in both areas, some short-term wins for ourselves, but then also some longer-term wins, or think about how a short-term goal might impact what you can do long-term as well. And goals are just there to help you plan. They're there to help you stick to whatever budget or plan you want for your life, but they're also flexible. So if you need to change a goal later in life, you can do that. They will just help you prioritize where you should be spending your money within your budget. And so if you've never set goals before, one way to look at them is looking at SMART goals with this little chart that we have here. You will want to set a goal that is specific. So what is the thing that you want to do? You want to be able to measure it. How will you know that you have actually achieved if you don't have some metric that you can use to know that you hit that goal? Is it something that's achievable? Is it in your power to accomplish it? Hopefully you pick a goal that is relevant. We just talked about you want to figure out what are those things that you value in your life. You would want to pick a goal that speaks to that value. And then time bound. You want to set yourself up for success. So you want to put a time limit on it so you know how much time you have to work towards something. And these goals can be very different. You know, we talked about saving for a wedding. Maybe it's paying for education for yourself or someone in your family. You might have the goal to foster or adopt, and you want to have some funding set aside to help through that process. It could be paying off different types of debts, buying a home. Maybe you need to buy a new car or a used car at some point in the future, or you want to save for an emergency fund. There's all sorts of goals that you can hit that are financially related. So a more specific look at how you might set up one of these goals. Paying my debt is very amorphous. It's like, yes, I know I have some debt, but it's not very specific about what I want to achieve. So to change pay my debt into a SMART goal, you want to get specific. Maybe you want to pay $600 of your credit card debt. You'll know you've achieved this because you've either paid off your $600 or not. Measurable, you're going to say, I'm going to pay $100 every month. You'll know that you've hit that piece of your goal because you've either paid your $100 a month or not, or maybe you paid extra 1 month that lets you pay a little less the next month, but overall, you're going to work towards about $100 a month. Is it achievable? Yes, that is an achievable goal for you if you set it. You're not saying you're going to become a millionaire tomorrow. You're not saying you're going to pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt the next day. You've picked a smaller target and given yourself some steps to get there, so that's achievable. Is it relevant? You've decided that one of your values in life is to pay off your debt and not be in debt to others, so that would be a relevant goal for you. And then time bound, you're going to say, I'm going to pay this in 6 months. So you've got $600 in debt that you want to pay off. You've given yourself 6 months to do it. That's how we got to $100 a month. It evens out like that. If you get partway through your SMART goal and your finances have changed and you can't hit your $100 every month, or you can't pay this off in 6 months, you can always adapt it. That's fine. But setting yourself a very specific laid out goal like this will help you know how to plan going forward. So when you're thinking about your goals, you want to break them into a couple steps. Break big goals into smaller ones, more actionable steps. It's easier for us to conceptualize pieces of something that leads up to something bigger than only looking at the big picture. So break something down into smaller steps that are easier to work on. Consider what resources you might need. If your goal is to own a home and you know that you need to save money for your down payment before you can get your mortgage, that's really great that you know that. But maybe you also save a little bit extra in case there's a sudden home repair that you need, or you have to go buy an appliance. Or if you're buying that home, maybe your resource is attending some classes at Home Depot to learn some DIY skills, because you don't have a landlord to call on anymore if something breaks. So maybe your resource is training yourself how to be a good homeowner and take care of your new house that you have. You always want to set a deadline. If you set a very specific, I want this saved or paid by this date, it helps you plan for that and lead up to that. You know, you've got X number of months left instead of just saying like, oh, at some point in the future. So definitely set a date. It helps to keep you on track. And something that else that can help keep you on track is finding a friend that you can share your progress with. Talking about money is sometimes like a weird situation between people, but it's really helpful to have an accountability person. So if you tell your friend, I'm really trying to save for my vacation this summer, I really want to maybe watch what I'm eating out in the months leading up to it so I can save that money and eat out a lot during vacation. And then if you're always calling your friend to go eat out every evening, they're going to be like, hey, you actually have a much bigger goal that you wanted to work towards because you value that vacation when you can have it. So let's skip it this time so you can have that fun time on your vacation. And if you're willing to share with your friend, maybe they can also share what their goals and values are for their own finances, and you can help keep them on track as well. I mentioned this a little bit. It's totally fine to revise your goals. They're not etched in stone, so you're very able to change them if you need to. Sometimes this might be your finances have changed and you no longer have the money to put towards a goal. Maybe you have gotten a new job and you actually have a lot more finances, so you can hit your goal faster. That's great. You can hit your goal and then set whatever your next goal is for yourself. Or maybe your priorities in life have just changed. If you were saving money to go towards a certificate program for work, but then you decided you really hate that work that you're doing and you want to get a whole new job, then go ahead and get the whole new job that speaks to what you want out of life better. And the money you were saving towards that certificate you don't need anymore, you can then move it to some other area of your budget. You'll want to think about, do you need to change the time frame you gave yourself to reach your goal? Or if you hit your goal, what is the next step? Perfectly fine to revise these, set new ones for yourself as you need to. All right, so we've got some goals for ourselves. Next, we need to know what money is coming into our budget so we know how much we have to spend. So we're going to look at our income. And income can get broken down into a number of ways. If you're working, you might have stuff related to jobs. So you have wages, maybe you're paid like every 2 weeks at your job, maybe you're paid monthly. You might be doing DoorDash where it's just based on how many orders you are delivering, but you have something related to the work that you're doing. You might be lucky to be in a job where you have a bonus. So you always want to think about including your bonus into your income as well. And I put unemployment compensation in the job section, not that your job is earning unemployment, but you're getting that because you were working. So it is related to your job. Other benefits that you might have, other public benefits could be getting Social Security. Maybe it is SNAP. So SNAP isn't like money that you're just getting necessarily that you can spend on anything, but it is something that is coming to you that can help part of your budget. Or maybe you're a senior and you're getting a senior food box, or you go to the pantry where, again, you're not getting money to spend on something, but you've got goods that you can consume. Having received those goods means it can free up some money in the rest of your budget to pay for something else. Other income sources you might have could be, if you're older and you're in retirement, you might have retirement that you paid into, or you might be getting a pension, which is really great. You might be getting gifts from people. If it's Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, birthdays, you might be getting some of that. And that's always great because not always expected, and it can give you a boost in some part of your budget. And as you're thinking about these different types of income that you might get, some of them are regular. You may get a public benefit paid to you on the first of every month. Or I know for myself, I am paid every other Friday. So I get that regular income stream coming in. Irregular things, maybe you work a job where you're getting tips a lot. So you've got a base amount of pay that you know you get regularly, but that tip wage is changing. And so it's going to fluctuate maybe when you get it if you don't work all the time, or the amount is just going to change from paycheck to paycheck. And sometimes we get seasonal money. If you only work during the holidays, maybe you're mostly retired, but you just want that extra income during the holidays, you might be getting just some seasonal income. Or you work as a lifeguard during the summer. You're not lifeguarding in December when it's freezing out. So you know you have income coming at different points during the year. And so we want to think about where our money is coming from, also when we're getting it, because that can help us better know when we're able to pay our bills then. Also, if you're getting paid at a job, want to look at your pay stub and see where some of your money is going. So they always take some money out for taxes. If you recently had a change in your household, a marriage or divorce, got a new kid, or a kid moved out, you can change what's called your Form W-4, which impacts how much tax is withheld. And so maybe you can boost how much, if you change that, you might boost how much you're getting in your take home pay each month. So that can also help your budget a little bit, but also look at things like if your company has an HSA or an FSA, so these are savings accounts related to healthcare items. If you are putting money into that, but then you're not spending that money, you can always change at some point during the year to not contribute as much to your HSA or FSA, and then you get that money back in your budget. Because why pay into something if you're not actually going to use that? So this is an example of one of the worksheets that you will get from the CFPB. It helps you track your different types of income. You'll see there's a different row for various things. And then we also have you track it by week. So we want you to list like how much you got if you get paid at your job, or if you've got two jobs, how much is coming in week 1 versus week 2, 3, 4, 5. This will help you see how much money you get at different points of the month. There's also always a space on these worksheets you can add in other for yourself. And when you're putting things in here, you want to look at what is called your net income. So this is what money is actually coming to your bank account after they've taken out for taxes or retirement or your FSA. It's what is actually hitting your bank account when you get it. These worksheets are nice. If you print them off, you can obviously handwrite anything. If you use it electronically, once you type into these boxes, it adds up everything for you, so you can skip using a calculator. So that is nice if you use it on your computer. Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is we're looking towards our budget. Please fill out your income worksheet. And we suggest, if you've never tried to do a budget before, or maybe you've tried and it hasn't worked, track your income and your expenses for 1 month before you start making any big changes, because you can't always make changes unless you know when money is coming in and coming out. So just spend a month looking at this, tracking everything, and then starting month 2 or 3, maybe you're making adjustments. If you realize you don't have enough income, maybe it's taking a second job, so your income tracker the second month would look a little different. All right, our next part is our expenses. It's never fun to think about how much money we're spending, but hopefully this will help us figure out what we are spending on. So the first thing you need to do is plan for your bills. You need to make yourself familiar with what bills you're paying on a monthly basis and how much you're paying to them. And I know this can be frustrating if you have a lot of bills coming in, or you've got one that you haven't paid for a while and now you're getting the letters that it's past due. But just ignoring those letters doesn't make those payments go away that you do owe to people. So it's gonna like suck a little bit. You have to pull those letters out and actually dig into them and figure out who do you owe and how much do you owe. But once you've got it all laid out, maybe you're better able to track and figure out how you can make those payments once you see it all in front of you. And again, we suggest that you track your spending for a month before you make any drastic changes, because you don't always know what you need to change until you can see it all in front of you. As we think about what are the expenses that we're spending on, they fall into 3 main categories. They're either a need, an obligation, or a want. So needs are things we have to pay for. You have to have a house to live in. That also includes your utilities to maintain that home. We have to have food to eat. If you have a medication you rely on that you have to take every day, obviously that's a need that you need to keep paying for. And reliable transportation might be a need to you. And we wrote reliable transportation here, not a new car, because sometimes transportation is buying a used car instead of a new one, or it's taking the bus. I used to take the bus a lot when I was in school, and I know it's a pain to have to sit there and wait. Sometimes your connection doesn't come, but maybe buying your bus pass is saving you a lot more money than paying for the upkeep of a car. So your need is reliable transportation. How that works out for you might look different than another person. Our obligations are things that we have to pay, but we maybe don't like to pay, but we're legally required to pay them. So this is going to include any debt repayment. It might be credit cards, which is why I left our little credit card symbol there. It might be a mortgage or a loan that you have taken out. We are legally required to pay these things back. It also includes child support and spousal support. If you have a legal thing with the court that says you have to pay those, it's an obligation we have to pay. We need to make sure we're including that in our expense tracker then. And then wants are things that we don't need and we're not obligated to pay. And they're often where we find it's easier to cut our expenses. So if our TV breaks and we need another TV, if we think we need another TV, maybe we don't really need it, it's a want. Or maybe it's looking at how expensive of a TV that we're buying. If we just need something that lets us watch the news versus some massive, I don't even know how big they get anymore, 60-inch TV. There are different ways that we can work around what those wants are. Restaurants, this is an easy way. We know we need to eat, but maybe we don't need to be eating out as often as we are. Or maybe we think about what is a more affordable restaurant to go to than something else. I just talked about reliable transportation for needs, and then under wants, we've got the new car. You may work somewhere or live somewhere where the bus doesn't go a lot. We see that a lot in the Mon Valley where our agency is located. The bus doesn't always go to all of the communities, or it's not a convenient place in your community, or maybe you work somewhere nowhere close to a bus line. In that instance, you are going to have a vehicle. But again, maybe it's not buying a completely brand new car. Maybe it's buying a used car or a pre-owned car that still runs perfectly fine. It doesn't cost as much, and it's easier maybe to take care of than newer cars. They've got lots of bells and whistles and electronics on them that are way more expensive when they break. So as you're looking at your expenses, you want to think about, is this really a need that I have to survive? Is this an obligation? I may not like to pay it, but I'm going to be legally required to, or is this a want? And as we're thinking about what all expenses we need to track, if you haven't thought about this before, this is just a great example of different types of expenses someone might have. You'll want to consider these. So you rent or mortgage, whether you're owning or you're renting from someone. Different utilities. I included phone and internet in utilities because I think where we are anymore as a society, they're more required. Like if I work at home, I have to have internet to be able to work at home if I want to do that. So an internet is a required utility for me. You may not have internet in your home because you've decided you can live without it, and that's great. You're saving money in that area. You might have cable or streaming services. You'll want to look at what you're spending on food. So that includes both your groceries and if you do eat out at any restaurants or get takeout. Any type of clothing, whether you need to buy uniforms for yourself or your child's school, or just general like clothes you wear on a daily basis. Transportation has a lot of hidden expenses within it you may not think about right off the bat. So obviously, if you owe a car payment, that's going to be one expense, but there's also maintenance. I know I need to go buy a new wiper blade for my car right now, so that's a maintenance thing that I need to do. Maybe you have to get something repaired on your vehicle. If you're driving, you'll have to have insurance that you're paying for. Or if you're not doing that, maybe you've got a bus pass or you're paying for rideshare services like Uber or Lyft. I just listed childcare, but as I thought about it later, it probably should just be child expenses in general. Definitely childcare if you're paying for out of home expenses. It might be a summer program if you've got your kid in summer camp for a week or for the whole summer. It might just be also child expenses like formula or diapers if they're really young. We all at some point have some medical and dental expenses that we have to deal with. Those are harder to predict sometimes. Again, our debt repayment, whether we've got loans or credit cards. Gifts that we give to people, we'll want to think about how much we're spending on gifts and kind of when that hits during different points of the year. If you donate to charity, that can be an expense. Some people do this all the time. If that's you, you'll want to build something into your budget that accounts for that. Or if it's one-off, maybe you just have 1 month that like if you give a lot around Christmas or Hanukkah, maybe you're only building it into your December budget then, and you don't do that the rest of the year. And then pets, whether you're feeding them, taking them to the vet, buying a million toys or treats, you'll also want to think about how your pet fits into your budget so we can make sure we're taking care of them. And as we think about all of these different expenses, we'll want to think about how often we pay them. So sometimes you can save money on something like your car insurance if you pay it every 6 months instead of monthly. That does require a lot more money up front. You obviously have to have 6 months worth of payments, but it's usually cheaper in the end doing that than paying every 6 months, because it's like a larger amount every 6 months if you would pay that and add it up in the end. So you need a lot upfront to do that, but you save time throughout that 6 months. The same thing goes if you're paying home or renter's insurance. That might be cheaper if you're doing a larger bulk couple of months instead of waiting. You'll also want to think about, are there hidden fees associated with any of this, or a monthly payment you forgot about? When I bought my new cell phone, I paid for cell phone insurance on it for, I think, a year or a year and a half, because I was like, if I drop this, I don't have another $800 to buy a cell phone. So I did pay that insurance. But then I got to a point where I was like, I've had my phone a while, I'm going to drop my cell phone insurance, and I could save that money then in my budget. So maybe you've got a streaming service you haven't watched in a while. Those ones are easy to drop off. Anytime you cancel something, just check your statements, check your bank statement or your credit card statement, however you were paying it. Check it for a month or two after to make sure they did actually stop charging you. Because if you try to cancel it, you want to make sure you keep your money. But you'll want to check your bank or credit card statement. Where is there money coming out that you weren't expecting? And maybe that is something that you can cut off. And looking for hidden fees, is there something you forgot about that's charging you a fee because you forgot to make some payment? Maybe go in and make a final payment on something to stop paying that fee. And think if there is anything you can cut, even if it's just temporarily. Maybe you cut Netflix for 3 months just to save that expense to put towards somewhere else in your budget to help balance it out. There's always, the library has a ton of stuff for free. There's also free versions of Redbox. You don't have to pay for a DVD at the little machine and get it. You can stream things for free online. The library has ways to stream music and movies online for free. We've got Comcast at our house, and I know we get the free version of Peacock, which is like the NBC app. So we don't pay for it because we're getting a lot of that for free. So think about if there is something you can cut temporarily and save money and transition to a free service instead, because that can also help your budget. And you don't have to cut it forever. You can always go back to it if you're like, I actually really love my Netflix. Just cut it for a couple months, or maybe you cut Hulu for a couple months while you're keeping Netflix, and then you flip flop and you cut Netflix next and you keep Hulu. So you can add and sort of adjust things, and that helps you save where your expenses are falling. Expenses also are regular, irregular, and seasonal, just like our income was. You've got expenses you're always going to pay, like your rent or mortgage. That's a regular thing. You have to pay that monthly. You might have irregular things. It's hard to predict medical bills or dental bills because you don't always know what that's going to cost till you go see the dentist. Even a vet bill, if you've got a pet, you can't always predict that. Maybe you can predict their yearly checkup, how much that costs, but not if they get sick. It's hard to predict how much a car repair is going to cost. So those are our irregular things. We can't plan when they always hit during the year, and we can't plan how much they are. But if we're saving money, hopefully that helps alleviate some of that burden. And there are also seasonal expenses that you know about, but they just fall at different times of the year. Maybe, you're buying a lot more gifts in November or December for whatever winter holiday that you're celebrating, or maybe you pay for a pool pass during the summer because that keeps your kids entertained, and that's fantastic. You can even think about your electric might be higher in the summer if you use a lot of air conditioning, and then your gas might be higher in the winter as you're heating. So those are two bills you pay every month, but when there are higher amounts is going to be seasonal. And so you'll have to think about how to budget for that and how to track those expenses a little differently when they hit. So again, this is a worksheet that you'll get, the spending tracker, and it has lots of options down our left-hand side of different things we pay for. And then again, we're going to track every week for a month. What did I spend on my cell phone? If you are putting things on your cell phone, actually every week for 5 weeks, you would want to track all of that. If you pay your cell phone just once on week 2, you would put your amount in week 2, and then the rest would be blank. If there is something on here that doesn't apply to you, obviously you can scratch it out and write something that does apply, or just leave it blank. So if you don't have any kids you're taking care of, obviously you don't need the childcare line. You could cross that off and write something else you do need to be tracking, or there is a spot at the bottom of the page for other categories. And again, if you do this online or on your computer, it will do the math for you, adding everything up, which is great. But otherwise, print it out, get a calculator, and write things in. If you have an app that does this already, like some apps like EveryDollar and Mint are also really good at categorizing your expenses for you. And that's really great that it can categorize it, but we still want to see when during each week of the month those expenses are coming in and out. So maybe you're using your app in conjunction with this worksheet. And another worksheet that you'll get is this bill calendar that you can fill in. You'll see our bottom squares towards the bottom. You can fill in the date and then what bill is due. And this is good to give you a visual cue of when really expensive things are basically going to happen during the month. And you'll want to keep it somewhere you see often. Maybe it's on a mirror you look in all the time, or on the fridge. So every time you go in and grab food from the fridge, you're seeing and remembering when you're about to have a big expense that comes up. And when you add expenses on here, you want to plan for the amount of time it takes for that payment to process. So if you pay things online a lot, instead of listing it on the 5th when it's actually due, list it that you need to pay it on the 3rd, which is 2 days beforehand. So that gives everything time to process and transfer from your bank account to the company to make sure it's actually paid on time. If you're going to mail something, you would want to list it a week before it is actually due, so it's got time to get there in the mail. And I will actually show you an example of what mine looks like in case this is confusing to you. So this is the month of June. I've listed all our days 1 through 30. And then this is an example of when my usual bills are going to hit. And I also listed my paydays on here, which is good to also list that. So you can see when I would get paid on the 9th and the 23rd, and then when my different utilities come, when I have to pay credit cards. And again, I pretty much pay everything online. So credit card one that's listed on the 6th, I paid that on the 6th, even though it was actually due on the 8th, because I want to make sure there's enough time for that payment to process, and then I don't get charged interest or late fee for not having paid. People usually think about, oh, my rent is due on the 1st. It is, so is mine, but I pay it at the end of the month before to make sure, again, that everything processes great. So my landlord is getting that rent and trash payment on the 29th of this month, so that by July 1st, everything has been transferred to their bank account. I don't have any late fees. Putting this view like this in front of you is great because it can help you conceptualize when, if you've got a lot happening in 1 week, maybe you need to move a payment to something else. So I don't often put charges on my second credit card, but if I do, I know that I have to pay that within 2 days of just having paid my first credit card. So if I wanted to, I could call my credit card company and say, hey, can we actually move this from it being due earlier in the month to being due later? And then it helps spread those payments out a little bit. You'll also want to think about, when are your payments needing to be paid versus when is your income coming in? So if all of your things were due in the first 8 days of the month and you only got paid on the 9th, well, if you didn't have any money left over from the month before, this is why we're struggling and, going from paycheck to paycheck, is you had everything due before you got paid again. So maybe talk to some of your companies, see if they can adjust when any of your due dates are, so that it could fall at a different point. So you can make sure you get paid, and then you've got the money in your account to send it off to a creditor or a utility company. People are often very visual people. So to see it all laid out like this could help you better understand when things are coming in and out of your account. And these are just for big bills. It's not I don't have grocery shopping listed on here, but if that works for you to plan when you're going to go grocery shopping versus when you're paid or when you have other bills, you could also add that if you wanted. All right, our last piece is looking at our savings. So anything you can save now for an unexpected expense is going to save you money later because it will help you avoid fees. It might help you avoid going into debt or having to take on a loan. The one at the top, our emergency fund, I highly recommend if you've never done this to think about starting one. There have been studies that most Americans can't afford a $400 emergency expense, which might be a car repair, it could be a medical bill. So thinking about saving $400 is a really great starting place because that data shows that you would at least be ahead of a lot of other people in the country if you could have that much set aside in case an emergency happened. And remember, if we're setting our goal of saving $400, our SMART goal is not going to say, I need $400 tomorrow. You'll set a time frame that you want to work in. Maybe that's over 6 months or over 12 months you want to save up towards your 400. And then your measurement, you're going to divide that out. What does that mean I need to save every month to hit that emergency fund? Once you've hit your 400, or if there's another amount you want to work towards, once you're in that rhythm of saving something, they really suggest to save at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So you'll need to have done the work to know how much you spend every month, which is why we had our expense tracker that we're going to track for a month. And they say to have 3 to 6 months because if you lose your job for some reason and it takes a while to get another one, you at least know you can afford all of the things that you pay for on a monthly basis. You can pay for that for 3 months then, and it's not as much stress on you. And once you've used your emergency fund, please actually use it if you have an emergency. Don't be like, oh, it's sitting there and I can't touch it. Definitely use it if you need to. Buying a new TV is not an emergency. Paying for car repair, paying for a medical bill, those are emergencies though. Please use it if you have it, and then you'll want to rebuild that emergency fund for the next time that you need it. Education, you might be saving for yourself or a family member and there are different ways that you can, places that you can put that money to save. Home or car, for both of them, you might be saving to either purchase one of those or save money to have in case either needs a repair. And if you're saving money to purchase a home, there are some really great companies out there that want to help you as a first-time home buyer that they give you like $3 for every $1 that you've saved. So that can help you get to your down payment amount a lot faster. They open every spring. I'll have a link that's in the resources for you. But you might be saving for a home or a car. You might be saving for irregular bills. So your car insurance, hits every 6 months. You need to save money for the next 6 months for when the bill comes again. Or you've got something that you only pay once a year. If you can save a little bit every month, then the month that expense hits, you don't suffer as much with your budget because you have set something aside to help pay for that. It could be car insurance. It could be, you go to the doctor once a year, you've got your copay, but then you're not sure what extra testing they might require and what that costs. Anything you can save towards that just helps you maybe not go into debt or not have to put as much on a credit card later. You can save monthly for gifts, whether you're saving for a birthday or saving for your winter holidays. I checked the calendar. We've got about 25 weeks right now to save until the very 1st of December. So you've got a couple weeks. If you save a couple dollars, if you have that, anything you can save now just means you're spending a lot less suddenly out of pocket when you do go buy all of those gifts. And then you can also think about saving for retirement. I know this is harder for some people to think about because it might be 20, 30, 40 years in the future. But Social Security retirement is not built for you to only live on that. It's only built to replace about 40% of what your employment income was. So you always want to save something towards your retirement. And there's different ways you can do this. If you are working, some companies have a 401k or a 403b. They're both just savings accounts for retirement, basically. Your employer might provide a match. So if you put in 2% of your pay, they might match that with another 2%. And that's great because it's free money and we never want to leave free money on the table. So take your match if that's possible. Often your retirement account is going to be invested somewhere, which deals with the stock market and all of that, which can again be stressful. There's lots of training materials online that can help you understand what that means, understand what the fees are for investing, what risks come with that. Like, I am not a certified investment person. I can't give you that information, but there are lots of places online where you can find that. And if your company has a 401k, they're obviously putting it into something else like Vanguard maybe or Corebridge. The staff at those places where your money is invested can give you that advice, help you understand how to do those investments so that your money can grow over time. So when it's 30 years down the line, you've actually got a lot more than what you just invested out of your own paycheck. There's lots of things to save for. And again, what one person is saving for might be completely different than what you're saving for. They've determined what's of value in their life and what's important to them. It's okay if it's different than yours, or don't let someone tell you, you shouldn't save for something. If you've determined it's important to you, you want to make sure that you are saving money for that. If you're looking for some ways to save more money, so the first easy one is decrease our expenses. We talked a little bit about this when we talked about different types of expenses. Is there anything you can cut? Like if you cut Netflix, I think mine is like $16 a month. Can I put that $16 in my savings account so that I'm not spending it? When you can cut all sorts of expenses, it doesn't have to be permanent. Just a few months can help give you a boost for something else. You can think about if you get extra paychecks. So if you're paid every 2 weeks, like my company pays us every 2 weeks, there are 2 months in the year where you actually get 3 paychecks then, because it hits on like the first, third, and the fifth week of that month. So if you have set up your budget that your expenses are always lower than just the income on your 2 paychecks, then when that third paycheck hits, you don't need it to pay for your regular expenses, and it's like having extra income, and you can just put an entire chunk into your savings account to hit some savings goal. Or maybe you take that entire chunk and you're paying off a large amount of debt at once. So if you've been able to keep your expenses under your usual income, when you get that extra bump, it's just really great to be able to put a whole chunk of money at something. And then you can also think if you have access to what's called automated savings or direct deposit. So automatic savings, some banks and credit unions do this, that they use some computer algorithm to analyze when you have money that comes in and out of your bank account. And then they know when they can transfer small amounts of money from your checking account into your savings account. It's not money that you're often needing to pay your regular bills. Their computer has analyzed all of this. And that's great because it automatically moves like 50 cents at a time over, and you don't have to manually go in and do it, or maybe you forget to go in and do it, but it's still doing that work to move something into your savings account. And that's really how savings accounts work the best. Every little bit that you add does add up over time. You don't have to put giant chunks in at once. All those little bits of savings still add up. You can also ask your employer to direct deposit part of your paycheck directly into a savings account. So maybe you have 90% of your pay goes to your checking account that pays all your bills, pays for any debt you have, but you have them put 10% automatically into your savings account. And this is great because, again, we sometimes forget to manually move our money over. So someone else has done that work for us. If you have a month where a lot of expenses hit, you can always move that money back into your checking account if you need it, but it's been put automatically into your savings for you. It starts earning interest right away, which is great. You can also split direct deposit when you get your tax refund a year from now, a little less than a year when you go to file your taxes. If you get a refund, you can have them split it between multiple bank accounts. So you can put something directly into your savings and you don't forget about it. You don't spend it because it was sitting in your checking account. It just automatically goes in and is a nice little boost for you. So where do we want to keep our savings? Where we keep it is going to change based on what it is. Some people just put it in a savings jar or an envelope. That's great. But you might be the person that if you see it, you want to spend it. And if that's the case, you'll want to think about putting it into a savings account instead, maybe. There are things called prepaid cards where you save $500, it goes to the company you have your prepaid card with, and then it sits there on that card for when you need to use it. So maybe you do that for your emergency fund. You've got it sitting on the card and you know you're not going to swipe that card until you have an emergency that you need to use it for. Savings accounts, I highly recommend this over a savings jar if you can, because you earn interest on your money, which is really great. Again, let's get all the free money that we can from this. If you don't have one, but you've got a checking account, talk with your bank. They can probably get something connected, but like give you a savings account and connect those two so you can easily move money back and forth. If you're really comfortable having your money at two different financial institutions, you can do some work on like Google searching for what's called a high yield savings account. That will show you accounts that are having higher interest rates. Like inflation sucks right now. I know things are a lot more expensive, but the weird counterpart to that is bank interest rates have gone up over the last few years. So if you have your money in what's called a high yield savings account, you can actually earn more than having money in just regular bank accounts. So if you're comfortable with that, you can think about that as well. Obviously, our retirement account, like I said, we want to have that in what is an investment account because that will grow even better than just a savings account. And we want to have that bigger amount of money when we get to our retirement. And then there's also things called savings bonds. If you aren't aware of them, you do something like buy a $25 savings bond and it matures. That's the language they use. It matures over 20 years. And then at 20 years, you have doubled or tripled that amount of money. So going from 25 to 75 maybe doesn't sound very exciting to you, but it's really good to use with kids or grandkids to help teach them about savings and kind of like get them on that road to doing that. And if we're looking for, again, how to make all of this make sense, you'll want to think about your cash flow plan, which again is going to help you figure out when is your money flowing in and out, and see how it's flowing in and out. And it will help you identify when you've hit a week where you have fallen short. And so remember our worksheets that we worked on, we tracked everything by week, not just how much in general was spent for the month. And this is really going to help us with that cash flow plan. So this is our worksheet. Again, you'll have access to this. If you use it electronically, the numbers you put in our very bottom line automatically transfer to the top, which is great. So we're going to basically combine our income and our expenses worksheets into one. So what are all of the things that we earned in week one, and it'll total up. So you'll see on our screen, we started the month with $250 and then we earned $300 from one place, earned $100 from another. We ended our week one with $650. But we also spent things during our first week. We spent $200, we spent $35, we spent $15. So once I take all of the income, or the worksheet does the math for me, all of the income I got in week one minus all of the expenses, I have $400 to start week two. Now, if you have an $800 expense that hits you on week two, obviously we don't have enough income for that. And so this is where our worksheets are going to help us figure out when are things hitting during different times of the month. If I don't have the income in week two, do I maybe need to change that payment date to a week three so that I can make sure my information balances across all of my weeks then? You're realizing that things aren't hitting at the right point. Change our billing due dates to after you have received your income, or if you had income month from left over from the month before, you can always pay something a little early instead of just waiting till the very end when something is actually due. You can pay things early for everything if you want to, if you've got the money during that specific week. Maybe instead of paying your car insurance every 6 months, you actually need to change it to a smaller monthly payment. The month that you pay that might seem smaller, but again, your trade-off is in the end, maybe it's slightly larger, but at least for that month, you know you've got a smaller monthly payment. Definitely think about applying for public benefits. There are benefits that help increase your income. So SNAP is essentially giving you some money to spend on food, not that you can spend it on anything else. But there are also ones that can decrease your expenses. Like if you qualify for medical assistance, that will help pay your medical bills, and then you don't have to go pay your medical bills. If you qualify for something, please apply for it and use it, because any money you save in that area because of a benefit, you can transfer it to another part of your budget to pay for something else. Again, we talked about our income tax withholding. That can change how much money you get each month during your paychecks, and then it will impact your tax refund or how much you owe in taxes when you actually file. But maybe you're fine getting a smaller refund because you'd rather have your money during the year when you actually need it. That's again a thing that you need to figure out what you value most, getting a really big refund or having more of your money throughout the year. Check with any creditors or debt people if you qualify for income-based repayment plans. It looks at how much you make and then limits what your payment is. So if you haven't thought about that yet, some utility companies do it. CAP is one. A lot of student loan companies will let you limit those payments based on how much you're making. In the end, you might pay slightly more in interest, like on a student loan, but your monthly payment is going to be more manageable to you. You can also see if it's possible to refinance at a lower interest rate. This may not be as possible now because interest rates have changed, but if you haven't looked at your interest rate on something in a really long time, it might be worth looking if you can get a lower interest rate on your mortgage. Or can you talk to your credit card company about, are they willing to lower your interest rate at all? And that can save you some dollars and cents along the way. I think really what hits us is, do we have enough money to go around? If we don't have enough money in our budget, our option is either increase our income or decrease our expenses. So increase our income, again, apply for benefits that give you money to spend. You might need to think about taking a job. So if you're retired, maybe you need to take a part-time job to give you some extra income. Maybe you need a second job, or just pick up some seasonal work where it's not like a forever job. You're just doing some extra hours to get some extra pay. What's considered the easiest way to get, instead of getting a whole new job, is just ask your employer for a raise or additional hours. This is always like bizarre to me because I hate having to like ask for a raise, but you're already working somewhere. So instead of looking for a whole new job, maybe it's working towards a raise. And this could be straight up asking for a raise. It could also be thinking about, is there a place you can get promoted? Or if you get a certain certification or training, is there something built into your company that automatically gives you that raise instead? So those are ways to raise your income. Have a garage sale, so you could sell items that you've decided aren't valuable to you anymore and you don't need. Or if you're very crafty, maybe you sell crafts that you have made, and that like hobby money can help supplement your budget. If we're limited on how much income we can bring in, then we need to look at how we cut expenses. And again, apply for benefits. Something like medical assistance will prevent you from having to spend as much on medical things. Avoid our unnecessary fees by paying on time. If you're getting hit with a credit card fee every month because you don't pay on time, try to hit it before it's actually due, and then you save maybe that $25 in your late fee. Looking for coupons and sales. I think most of us probably do this, but if you've never thought about it, changing where you shop, like Aldi's versus Giant Eagle, can save you some money, or cutting out coupons, or some store apps have a lot of coupons in them, or shopping sales. Any of that can help move your money around in your budget, or maybe you can afford more food if you're buying different types of food. Now, I'm a person, I said this when I did my savings webinar, I'm never going to buy generic Cheerios because I think they're horrible. If I'm buying my Cheerios, they're going to be real Cheerios. But I have made the decision then, if I buy my real Cheerios, it means I'm buying generic other cereals, and I eat a lot of cereal. So you'll figure out what is important to you, what you like better, and balance that out with everything else that you need to buy in your month. Maybe you need to think about packing your lunch if you buy a lot when you're at work, or even if all you're buying at work is like soda and a granola bar. If you buy a box of granola bars at the store instead of out of a vending machine, that can save you money over time. Look at energy conservation methods. So can you winterize your home or seal air gaps so you're not heating the neighborhood or letting your air conditioning escape? That will save you on your utilities. Or can you apply for a utility assistance program? If you've got insurance, you can sometimes save money if you combine your renter's insurance with your car insurance at the same company. That sometimes saves you money. Or shop around different insurance companies. If someone's going to give you $100 off for being a new person, take your $100 off for being a new customer with them. And one thing I'm definitely going to promote is our free tax preparation, because we do that here at my agency. So taxes, again, when we hit the spring, I know they're very expensive to do if you're paying one of the for-profit companies. We've heard people spend a couple $100s on that. If you qualify for a free tax program, please make use of that. You'll not only save the couple hundred on your tax preparation, but we can help make sure that you're getting all of the refund that you would be due and you're not leaving money on the table somewhere. All right, I feel like you have to write this all down because again, you'll get this information, but we work very closely with the Pittsburgh Financial Empowerment Center. They're fantastic. They do free one-on-one financial counseling. So I gave you like an overview of a lot of budget things. They will actually sit down with you with those worksheets, work through where your income and expenses are, and help you build that budget. Anyone who's at least 18 in the area is welcome to use their services. They're also connected with Advantage Credit Counseling. So if you've got a lot of credit card stuff going on or a lot of debt, things on your credit report that's impacting your ability to afford other items, they again will help you work with that directly and get that figured out. And then the CFPB worksheets, you'll have access to them at this link online if you want to download, but you'll also have a link to a Google Drive that we have set up where you can download all of the worksheets. And then our agency, specifically the Human Services Center Mon Valley, we have a program called Supports for Success. So our staff member Iris loves to work one-on-one with you also, which might be setting up your finances, it might be setting up your budget. You might have a goal of going back to school or buying a home or something. She will sit with you one-on-one and figure out all of those steps to help you achieve that. We have lots of other events that we run. I know next month, our next financial event is all about Social Security benefits like SSD and SSI. So if you want to learn more, please feel free to attend one of our other events. I mentioned our free tax preparation. We are happy to help you come next January when we file taxes. Please reach out to us. And then we also have put together at our agency what we call our financial resource guide. So this is like 30 pages of lots of information on how to do budgeting, information on different public benefits, like describing the program, describing how to apply. We try to consolidate that all in one place to make it easier for you. So there is a link on our website, but it will also be in that Google Drive folder that you can access. I'm going to stop my screen share and let's take a look at some questions, because I know there were some submitted on the registration form. So the one that I really liked on the registration form was, I forget the exact phrasing, but like, is budgeting for me? I'm a bartender. And budgeting is for everyone. Everyone needs to know what income they have coming in and going out. You might have very different income as a bartender if you get lots of tips or your tips change depending the week of the month or the day of the week. But a budget will actually help you know better than how to manage that different income that you're having compared to all of the expenses that you have. It's definitely for everyone. It's for everyone, even if you're retired. You obviously have a limited amount of money that you can work on if you're getting Social Security or you've got a pension that only gives you so much. If you're not willing to work or not able to work at this point, a budget will help you stick within how much income you have coming in. Dharma, do we have anything specific in Q&A that I should look at first?
Yeah, we have a question. Are we able to get a recording of this webinar to share?
Yeah, the recording ends up on YouTube, which is public for anyone to go and look at it. So there will be a link in that follow-up email that you'll get. And you'll also like have the slides that you can like share the link for the slides as well. So definitely you'll all have access to this. Keep it, you know, in your email folder somewhere. You can refer back to it in like a year. It's still going to be on YouTube unless YouTube disappears from the internet or something. Perfect. So some other questions we had, budgeting can be hard. So what tips do we suggest to help keep them disciplined on their budget? So again, we talked about thinking about what is valuable to you, what is important of a goal that you want to reach in your life, and then setting it like an actual written goal for yourself instead of just being like, oh, I want to save money at some point. How much money do you want to save? For what specific purpose? And how are you going to build steps to get there? And then in your budget, you can always include savings as an expense. So maybe that's moving $50 a month from your checking account into your savings account. You can count that as an expense to yourself to make sure that you're hitting that savings goal. So instead of just being like, I want to save some money, or I'd like to manage my money better, set a very specific goal that matters for what's important to you, and it will help you stay disciplined in getting there. I have an Excel spreadsheet that I write down every month, like where I'm spending my money, and that helps keep me on track. And I've definitely noticed the months that I forget to fill out my little budget form. I have no idea where I'm spending my money. I teach this. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect at what I'm doing. So I have to do that because that's what keeps me disciplined and keeps me on track to make sure that I'm hitting my own goals as well. If you're good with having something that you only fill out quarterly and that works for you, that's fantastic. I've learned it doesn't work for me, so I would not be doing that.
We have another question in the
Yeah.
Q&A.
Yeah.
Is it all right to call public assistance about Medicaid if you work part-time for a company and have their health insurance?
Ooh, that is a great question, and I'm not sure I know the actual answer for that. Possibly there's a way that you can get some public assistance, like if you're only partially covered, they might provide the rest of it. I don't entirely know that. That would have to be a call to the county assistance office who can better answer that for you, because I could assume a whole lot and I could be very wrong, and I'll feel bad if I say the wrong thing. But it's always worth calling. If they say no, at least you've tried and you have figured it out. But if they say yes, then that's fantastic. And you know that you qualify for something and go through the steps to make sure that they actually enroll you in it. And I will say, there has been a change for medical assistance. During the pandemic, they weren't doing renewals for people. So if you're on medical assistance and you didn't have it before the pandemic, you may not know that you're usually supposed to apply every year. This is a change that will be happening over the next several months. You'll get an application in the mail, like a renewal packet. You need to fill that out and send it in, or you need to go on Compass and fill out that information. Because if you don't, you might get dropped from medical assistance. And we don't want that to happen, because if you need it, it's obviously helping you in your budget to save money. So definitely make sure you're doing your renewal so you can keep your assistance benefits. Because you qualify, might as well keep them. All right, another question from our registration form. If I have to take a break in my budget 1 month, how do I recuperate for the next month so I'm not digging a deeper and deeper hole? And this is hard because if you have an unexpected expense hit, it's not always easy to plan for that. But that is why we really highly suggest emergency funds. If you're able to put any money towards an emergency fund, when you have a month where something hits, it's not completely blowing out your budget. You can pull that money out of your savings account and use it, and that helps you not dig a deeper hole. Now, granted, if something hits when you don't have an emergency fund to rely on, that's when we take a look at the other things. Are there temporary things that you can cut to help alleviate the burden of that unexpected expense? If I had something hit and I didn't have my emergency fund, I don't need my Netflix. I really don't. I do not need to spend as much time watching that TV as I do. That would be the first thing that I cut. I would really look at what type of cell phone plan that I have. Maybe I don't need unlimited data or something. Any money that I can save or adjust there is possible. Also, like the FEC, the Financial Empowerment Center, has great information about this, that there are much more inexpensive cell phone plans than what I think a lot of us grew up with or are more used to, like Verizon, T-Mobile, all of the other ones, AT&T. They can be a lot more expensive than some of the pay-as-you-go options, or if you're lower income, there are some connectivity programs that can get you like connected for $30 a month. So maybe you look at transitioning to something that's much more affordable for a little bit of time. So think about what are those expenses you can cut in one area. If you don't have anything that you can cut, which unfortunately happens sometimes, are there any public benefits that can help alleviate an area in your budget? Sometimes you need to think about not paying one bill for a month because it lets you pay something else. We talked about our needs. You have to have a place to live and you need to have some food to eat. You got to keep the lights on. So maybe you prioritize paying certain bills first before paying some other ones, which is like a really hard decision to make. And it might mean that you're stuck in debt a little bit longer, but you have made sure that you have a place to live. And again, the FEC is great at individually working with each person to figure out where those areas to cut might be, or help you figure out what to prioritize in case you end up in that situation.